At the end of a competitive game, it's common courtesy to say good game or good games to your opponent. This carries over from long before video games, but thanks to the internet, we now often just shorten that to GG. There's a really important reason that we do this, and it's not just because sportsmanship, because that's not really a reason. That's just what they told you in kindergarten, because your 5-year-old brain wouldn't understand the real reason. A lot of things work that way, actually. Not hurting other people's feelings because you wouldn't want your feelings hurt is a very good reason to be nice, but not everyone is going to develop that kind of empathy and act in good faith, and so I often find it more useful to talk about how being nice affects you, the person being nice. Caving to insecurities and doing petty, spiteful things, that's considered negative for a reason. It's not just because someone else told you it's wrong and you're not supposed to do that. It's that these emotions physically affect you. Emotions are not silly little ideas we teach children to make them behave. They are chemical states for your body to be in. Negative emotions can make you sweat, increase your blood pressure, tire you out in general. They also turn important parts of your brain off, the parts that are best suited to problem solving and making good decisions. This is one of the reasons never to yell emotionally at a teammate on the mic. Even if you're right about what they should be doing, activating negative emotions in them will only make them play worse in that moment because it's shutting those parts of their brain off. Being nice is more than just doing what you're supposed to do. It's something that even a fundamentally selfish person should want to do because it causes the fewest negative emotions and promotes the most positive ones. Saying GG is specifically designed to counter a very common negative emotion, a specific source of insecurity. When you were little, playing games with other kids and you won a game, you probably had the experience at some point or another of someone saying, "No, you didn't win," when you clearly won. Kids will start with that, then realizing that that statement is obviously wrong and that they just couldn't accept it at first, they might switch to, "That wasn't fair," or "You only beat me because," and then give some silly excuse. Kids aren't used to failure. They've been nothing but encouraged for a long time, and it takes experience losing to learn to take a loss in a healthy way. It takes humility to lose and not get upset. People want to be the hero, the winner, but being a winner in a zero-sum game means there's got to be a loser. And so in competitions like these, it's important to sign up knowing there's a possibility that you'll lose and preparing yourself to handle that gracefully and manage your emotions in case it happens. It's also important, for the sake of learning how to win in the future, to recognize that there were two participants in the match you played. Some people who aren't as familiar with competitive games approach a multiplayer match expecting the same kinds of systems that you find in a single-player game. Single-player games can just reward the player constantly, telling them, "Good job, you did great, you're a winner," every time, even if what they're doing is simple enough that every player can be expected to accomplish it. But in a multiplayer game, you aren't the only person with agency over who wins a match, and the game has to be fair for anyone to want to play it. Your opponent is also a thinking human person, and for all you know, they may have been working even harder than you have. They may have come up with an extremely clever solution to a problem that you hadn't thought of. They may have outplayed you. If you get upset because you're not being rewarded for doing what's deliberately expected of you, what's designed explicitly for you to be able to do, like in a single-player game, you're not only going to experience the effects of negative emotions, you're also going to miss out on opportunities to learn. If you convince yourself that a match was unfair, you may miss something really cool your opponent did that now you can learn from and try to do yourself. You may fail to realize that your opponent has been grinding the game like crazy recently, something that would actually help you feel more at peace with losing to them, maybe even feel happy for them for their growth. But if you fall into those little kid patterns of denial that you lost, insisting that you're still better than they are, they just cheated, or it was lag, or their weapon is broken, you lose those opportunities to feel better and to learn. When you say good game, what you're saying is that the game you played was real. You're not denying what happened. You're looking at your opponent and saying that whatever happened in that match, win or lose, it's good that there was a game to play. You're happy that you had an opponent to play against, because you needed that opponent to be able to play the game at all. If you lost, you're telling the other player that, yes, you beat me, your win is valid. Maybe you could play that same opponent 100 more times and win each one of those 100 times, but this game, they found a way to come out on top. That's what matters in a tournament. It's not there to say who's the greatest of all time, like any sports fan will love to argue about. It's there to say who was the best player on that day. If you weren't trying your hardest, well, that's your issue. You weren't the best player on that day. Now, rankings will take into account consistency. Someone who won the last 7 tournaments in a row and only gets second in the 8th one can still keep their number 1 spot. And maybe there were extenuating circumstances. Maybe you were trying a new strategy that you hadn't tried before. Maybe your health wasn't great. You were really, really tired. And people might take that into consideration. But on that day, you're responsible for those things, and that player will still shake the hand of the player who pulled off the upset and say GG. If they're really the best player in the room, they're going to be honest with themselves about why that loss happened, go back, figure out how to prevent it from happening again, and give their opponent a harder match to play next time. The little kid who whines that it wasn't fair and tries to say bad game instead of good game, they didn't make it that far in the bracket. And that's no coincidence.